Shabbat Shalom, everyone. As I said earlier, and this is Shabbat Hagadol, this Shabbat before Pesach, and traditionally it's customary that this is one of two Shabbatot throughout the year when the rabbi is supposed to give a very long sermon. You think it's a joke. Good thing we have two B'not Mitzvah this morning. They gave a lot of Torah and taught us a lot of Torah already, so you don't have to deal with me. And the truth is, as I've been trying to share words of Torah this Shabbat, this is supposed to be a Shabbat before Pesach, which is a new year of sorts, supposed to be Torah that helps prepare our hearts and our souls for re-experiencing the Exodus experience, for re-experiencing freedom. And it's been difficult because over the past several days, every time I've turned on the news, I'm consumed by the latest tragic school shooting in our country. As a domestic terrorist took 5 firearms, including an AR-15, 28-year-old former student of the Covenant School, a Christian school in Nashville, and opened fire, doing so, killing the head of school, a substitute teacher, the custodian, and 3 students, all 9 years old. What's worse is that there have actually been 3 mass shootings in our country since then that the news hasn't covered. 3 students, 9 years old. On Thursday, students throughout Nashville filled the halls of the Tennessee State Capitol building, demanding to be heard from elected officials as the legislature was in session. We saw a video of hundreds and hundreds of students crying out to those who are supposed to represent them, begging to not live this way. Meanwhile, back in D.C., Congressman Tim Burchett, who is the elected representative of the district that represents Nashville, was asked what is he prepared to do to protect his residents, to answer to the 6 families of his constituents that have buried loved ones. And he quickly retorted, "We're not going to do anything. Congress will just mess things up. We can't do anything to solve gun violence," he said. And when asked how does he feel comfortable taking his own child to school every day, believing that she is safe, he said, "Well, we homeschool her." As we prepare for Passover, we ask the question each and every year, what does it mean that the Israelites, that Bnei Israel, were enslaved? Are we simply focusing on the harsh labors represented by the charoset, the mortar-like food that we eat, the terrible living conditions represented by the salt water, our tears that we would cry? Or is it about a mindset, a refusal to believe that they could ever be free? In fact, the Torah tells us, well, the Israelites were enslaved for 400 years. It was only when they stopped crying out to God, only when they gave up hope, that God turned to them to free them. Maybe that was the definition of slavery, that they no longer believed that life could get better. Ibn Ezra, the 11th century Spanish commentator, asked a question when the Israelites were at the edge of the Sea of Reeds, and they freak out. They want to turn back. They say life was better when we could sit by the flesh pots of Egypt and eat our fill of bread. Life was better as slaves. Why don't they fight back as the Egyptian army is gaining speed towards them? The Torah says there were 600,000 who left Egypt. Surely big enough and strong enough to at least put up a fight. And Ibn Ezra answers his own question and says, they did not have the spirit to believe anything could change. In fact, Midrash Tanhuma tries to understand why the Torah says that when the sea split, Moses caused Israel to set out from the Sea of Reeds. An odd conjugation, odd verb usage, and Midrash says Moses actually had to drag the Israelites through the split sea into freedom, kicking and screaming. They could not believe that freedom was possible. Their mindset was about being enslaved, believing that this reality, that this way of life was all that there is. And so, what does it mean that we prepare ourselves for what slavery was like so that we can experience or re-experience that exodus to freedom on Passover? We're living in an enslavement of sorts. Because if Midrash is saying that slavery is about a mindset, when a congressman says that elected officials can't do anything to change the gun violence epidemic in this country with such resignation, that is what it means to be enslaved. In Egypt, in Mitzrayim, Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav said that it is not Mitzrayim, but Mitzarim, from the narrow places the Israelites left. We're enslaved in a narrow-mindedness, a closed-mindedness, and an apathy. Have we really accepted that this is the world that we want to live in? The world in America that we want to live in. Because as we were preparing to celebrate this Benot Mitzvah, this is not the reality in Japan, where gun violence dominates the news every day. Only here. Hashta Avdei Lashana Haba B'nei Chorim, we say at our Seder tables when we celebrate and have these meals where we ritualize freedom and we remember freedom, we still say Hashta Avdei, now today we are still slaves. It doesn't make any sense. Why on the holiday when we celebrate freedom, we are saying we are still slaves? Because when we have a mindset that accepts a reality in which there are those who worship guns like idols were worshipped in Egypt, a reality in which when we say goodbye to our children every morning and send them off to school, we hope that they will come home at the end of the day. A reality in which we worry about going to synagogue and church and mosque for worship services. A reality in which we worry about going to the mall or to the movie theater or to the supermarket or to a concert or to work. Hashta Avdei. But yet, even so, we say at our Seders, L'shana haba'a b'nei chorim. Maybe next year, finally, we will be free. We still believe that there is a possibility of a better world, of a better life, that we don't have to live in this society. And maybe our elected officials resign to the fact that this is the world that we live in. Thank God for the children that are marching in the halls of their elected officials' offices, demanding something else. Because when I look for hope, And who's going to build a better world? It's our children who refuse status quo, who refuse to say that this is it, who refuse to be apathetic, who refuse to stand idly by. Hashta Avde. Today we may still be enslaved to this gun violence epidemic. The Shana Haba'a B'nei Chorim. Going forward, may we do the work to make sure there are fewer shootings and fewer guns in this country. Amen.